Hello and welcome to the Long Sport here on New Zealand Sport Radio. Hi, I'm Paul, I'll be your host, and today we get on to our third New Zealand rugby province. Wow, we've already done Northland, we've done Tasman, and now it's the Steamers. It's Bay of Plenty with Mike Rogers. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, Paul, and hopefully the third union is the best union. You've left us for that point, is that right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Getting better and better. See. So the question I start everybody off with is how do you get into rugby? What's your first rugby memory?
Oh, my first rugby memory is as a little fella down in Dannyburg, just out of Palmerston North. I remember running onto the cold, frozen grass and bare feet, getting out there trying to tackle in the middle of winter, and so that's certainly something that stuck with me right throughout my life. As a young fella, but yeah, love being involved in rugby, right through from 5, 6 years old all the way through to a little bit older now, and being able to contribute back to the game in a different way.
So when you're talking about 5 and 6, running on the pitch barefoot, full contact rugby.
Yeah, full contact, and it was full contact. It was full on. So it was a pretty tough introduction for a little fella, but certainly taught you to get stuck in and be tough and to deal with all those sort of situations. So I certainly looking back, wouldn't have had it any other way. Still have friends, way back from early on in my rugby career that I've stayed connected to, and I think that's a big part of sport, isn't it? That you want those relationships and friendships that are enduring and lasting right through your whole life.
So I had a chat with Junior Fatuilofa, who's part of the Pacific Rugby Players Association over in the UK, and he was saying that he ran on the pitch at about the age of 4 and basically tackled with his head. Now, were you that boy, or did someone told you put your shoulder in and get some proper tackle technique straight away, because he had a stiff neck the first day?
Yeah. He was probably a much better athlete, a lot stronger than I was, even as a 4 or 5 year old. So I had to be a bit smarter and stay out of the way of those big lads. So I think my tackle technique was okay. I don't remember having any concussions, so hopefully I had a reasonably good technique in that tackle. But I don't know. I didn't get too many applause from the coaches throughout my career, so I don't know if it was good or not.
Were you also a hot Milo at 3 o'clock in the morning watching overseas test matches with your dad, family? Or
Yeah, absolutely remember those days. Getting up, in the middle, didn't want to get out of bed, but once you did get up and you like say had the blanket on, had the hot chocolate, able to watch the All Blacks versus South Africa and other games, those are memories that'll last with me, and it's something that we pass on to our children. So my wife and I will get up and watch games and get the kids up, so they experience the same thing that we experience. So it's part of that rugby tradition, I guess, or that sport tradition, passing that on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone has those kind of, or everyone I talk to in New Zealand has those, pretty much has those kind of memories. So how far did you play, sort of up to first 15, or how far did rugby take you from a playing point of view?
Yeah, my main sports were basketball and tennis, but I did play rugby right through high school and was in the first 15 at St John's College in Hamilton, and was in the same team as a pretty decent flanker of the time. Marty Holler was at St John's at the time, so I loved playing footy, and unfortunately we had a pretty staunch basketball program at St John's College, and wasn't allowed to play basketball and rugby, but I was able to sneak out from time to time. Didn't even own a pair of rugby boots at that stage, but luckily enough, the coach was able to help me with a pair of boots so I could sneak on and play. But I still remember one day playing on a Saturday, and the basketball coach, who was the deputy principal at the time, found out that I was there, so he came along to the sideline and quite firmly told me to get off the field and don't go back. So it was, I guess, the nature of sport where everyone's sort of interested in making sure they protect their own sport. But I love playing rugby at high school, and still remember a lot of those experiences to this day.
The approach has changed, hasn't it, a lot now? Because obviously they don't have full contact that are so young. There's a lot of big push to have, especially children, especially sort of young adults, all through to your late teens, being multi-sport athletes, to have more route, because it helps you with injury prevention later on. Those are all things you're now pushing in Bay of Plenty as part of as sort of a change approach.
Yeah, I think so. And again, if I liken it back to my experience, while it wasn't so topical at the time, I was lucky enough to play a whole range of sports, gave everything a go. Played softball, played tennis, played basketball, played rugby. And I think that the range of sports are fantastic for your development, from your own physical development, but also mental development. But it's also just, I think, in terms of the networks that you generate and the friendships outside just one core group of friends, I think that's a really valuable outcome of participating in a range of sports as well. It teaches so many life skills, having to adapt to a whole range of different people. So no, I'm an absolute subscriber for that. I think it's really important that our young people test a whole range of different things, because they're going to learn something different from everything that they try. So that early specialisation, I think it's a proven, fact now that doesn't work on the scale, that some people have suggested historically it did. So I think for us, encouraging our young people to be really active is the right thing to do.
And have you followed North Harbour's lead in stop in sort of I forgot which age group it is now that they've stopped the
Roller Mills.
Roller Mills, that's it.
Yeah. So we're part of the Northern Regions group that was reviewing the benefits and I guess the cons of having those age groups and that early sort of connection to a rec program. And look, there is some value in those programs, but I think we need to replace them possibly with a better program around education and development of our players and be able to attract a wider audience rather than narrowing that funnel too early. And I think also we need to do a better job of working with our parents and educating them around what's really important at that age. We don't want to take away the competitive nature of our young people. I think that's hugely important. We want to retain that. But we also need to foster it in a way that more young people get exposed to that competitive opportunity versus, like I say, narrowing it too early. And a range of amazing young people don't get the opportunities that others get. So it's a balanced approach, I think. And so I'm a very competitive person myself, and value that as part of, if I think about my situation when we're employing people, we want people to be competitive. When you're going for a job, it's a competitive process. People don't just give you jobs. You actually have to work hard, you have to prepare, and you have to earn that job. And so we want our young people to learn those life skills through sport as well, but we want more of our young people to experience that opportunity.
Cool. And you said you played a bit of first 15, but that wasn't your main thing. So I'm assuming you didn't go into professional rugby, and you took another path into were you in sports administration right from the start, or what did you do out of school?
Yeah. So my path was basketball and tennis. So I went over to America towards the end of high school and spent time over in America playing, going to school, but playing sport over there. And then came back to New Zealand and played National League basketball at the time back in New Zealand for North Harbour. But then got a few injuries when I was quite young, so sort of 19, 20, my body had sort of fallen to bits on me, unfortunately. And so that pushed me into coaching and into sports administration. So I've had a pretty varied degree in sport in terms of I've been a professional tennis coach at Waikato Tennis and at Tararangi Tennis Club up in Auckland on the west side of Auckland. Been a sports coordinator at Pakuranga College, and then on to director of sport at Takapuna Grammar, and also back at my old school, St. John's College as well. So I've sort of come right through. So sport's been a big part of my life as a young person when I was a participant, and now obviously having the opportunity to be able to give back through my roles and actually encourage others to take full advantage of the value of sport. It's sort of come full circle.
Have you... Do you keep in touch with your basketball roots? Have you seen their latest suggestion of a 5-week season?
Yeah, I for my sins, I'm back coaching my daughters in basketball. They play basketball, they love it, and so yeah, I'm a volunteer coach. So I do stay connected somewhat to the sport, and I think all of those models around trying to get return to play, it's there's just so much, I guess, pressure on to get some content out there, isn't it, for the broadcasters and for the clubs? There's so much revenue associated, obviously, with that, and we're experiencing that in rugby in terms of trying to get Super Rugby and the Mitre 10 Cup back up and running so we can, start generating some revenue again to invest in the game. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Basketball, I think is certainly a popular sport, not only in New Zealand, worldwide. There's lots going on, and I think they're doing some fantastic things. And I just wish them good luck if they can get that up off the ground. It's going to be a good outcome for them.
Yeah, 5 weeks of games every single day will be wow. That's how you say creating content. That's a lot of content. On that revenue side of things, we yesterday the Crusaders came out and mentioned that they're having to make some people redundant. How is Bay of Plenty coping with on the revenue side of things?
Yeah, well, we're no different than anyone else. We're certainly feeling the effects of COVID-19. It's having a significant impact on our revenue, and at this point in time, we're probably predicting somewhere around a 40 to 45% drop in income for the year, which is obviously significant. And obviously very limited opportunities to replace that lost income. So like the rest of rugby and the sports industry and the wider, industries, we're having to reduce costs where appropriate and make sure that we're being really fiscally responsible right throughout to the end of the year, and try and position ourselves as best as possible moving into 2021 as well.
So you've done doing the 4-day weeks, like I think both Tasman and Northland both mentioned they were doing.
Yeah. So we've got a fantastic staff who are obviously, like most sports organisations, are hugely motivated about what they do, and they understand the pressure that the organisation that Bay of Plenty's under, and they're prepared to roll up their sleeves and contribute to, trying to make sure that we're viable moving forward. So yeah, very similar to a number of the provincial unions in terms of the structural changes that we're having to make.
Cool. Also not cool, but understandable that that's sort of happening. When you look at your job, there's multiple parts to it. You've got the youth, the grassroots, the clubs. You've got the professional side. When you're have your sort of end of year review, how you sort of as a CEO, how are you judged in the sort of balance between those? Are you judged purely on where you finish in Mitre 10, or how are you kind of judged?
No, that's a very good question. So look, it's a balanced approach to what we're trying to achieve. Obviously, for us, we have a strategic plan in place, and currently we're in the third year of our current strategic plan, and so a lot of the measures in terms of how we perform come obviously directly out of that plan. So yes, we want to perform well at our shop window teams, being the Steamers and the Volcanics and the Whara Palmer Cup. We measure ourselves around our ability to develop and grow people and move them forward to national programs or Super Rugby opportunities, etc. So that comes into the equation when we're looking at our performance and my performance. We're very proud of the fact that we've grown our game at the community level year on year for the last 7 or 8 years to becoming the third biggest union in New Zealand, and so that's another really important measure for us in terms of participation. Are we engaged in our community? So we have some measures in place around that as well.
So sorry, when you mean by third biggest, you mean as in number of players, or how are you measuring the size?
Yeah, based on a number of players' participation rates. So obviously we've got Auckland and Canterbury, the top two, and now Bay of Plenty's in third in terms of the number of players playing rugby right through from the lilies all the way through to adults. So that's an important measure for us, because that's a big part of who we are as an organisation. We're a community organisation that's focused on providing opportunities. So that's heavily weighted in terms of our performance and my performance. And I think, and it's a difficult thing to measure, but it's also around how the organisation, the value, the culture of the organisation, and making sure that it's operating with good people. Are we attracting good people? Are we retaining good people? And so that's something we look at as well in terms of the quality of people that are involved in our organisation, because ultimately, the better people that you have working for you, then the better outcomes you're going to achieve. So that's been a big focus for us as well.
Okay. And when you say you're 3 years into your strategic, but how long was that strategic plan for? Yeah,
it was our 3-year strategic plan. So it's a really interesting process. I always feel around, because our society is changing and sports changing so quickly, the ability to plan out too far ahead, is really difficult. So we've always taken the approach that it's a sort of a maximum 3-year period that we want to operate within, and equally be really flexible and fluid in terms of changing our direction if we feel like something's come along, it's a really good opportunity for us, or we're going down the wrong track and when we just can't see the results that we wanted to see. So, and a good example of that is the growth of the female game in rugby. Over the last sort of, especially 18 months to 12 months, it's been significant growth. And so we've been really focused on that, and we've seen some fantastic outcomes. So I think that's where you just got to be really, really fluid and really flexible.
And I just had a chat with your the head of women's performance on your side of it. So things well, before the whole COVID thing happened, and there was an expectation of perhaps having a new tournament in place ahead of the Rugby World Cup next year, maybe. Do you still see that happening, or do you think the Farah Palmer Cup will just change its kind of dates?
Again, it's really difficult to know until we work our way through the different levels. But we're certainly hopeful that at some point this year there's a Farah Palmer Cup. When and what that looks like, I think that detail still is going to need to be worked through. But from a Bay of Plenty point of view, we're incredibly motivated about ensuring there's an opportunity for our top female athletes to represent the region. And so that's our priority for this year. And so we'll continue to talk with New Zealand Rugby around the possibility of that happening. And then in terms of the potential new competition next year, again, hopefully that's still an opportunity for our female players to participate in, because it'll be a great lead up to the Rugby World Cup, and we wouldn't want to see some of those opportunities falling away because of COVID-19. But you can appreciate that with the financial restrictions that we're all under, it's going to be a lot more difficult. But hopefully we can still provide all those opportunities for our female players.
And on the men's side, from a high performance point of view, obviously you had just one round of working with the China Lions. But that was a multi-year deal, wasn't it? So that you are the intention is to keep that going over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even though, like you said, we only got one round in, and it was a win over Fiji in Fiji, which doesn't often happen. So we're at a pretty good place at that point, and then to have it sort of ripped away from us was really disappointing and tough on the players, because they worked really hard to get to that point, and have been a real challenge to get that team off the ground. But we saw some really promising signs. So, yeah, look, the intention is to continue that partnership with China Rugby, and obviously one element is the Rapid Rugby opportunity. There's a whole range of other things that we're working on with China Rugby that we think will benefit the development of the game in China, but ultimately also, from our point of view, provide opportunities for Bay of Plenty Rugby. So that conversation is very much alive, and we're continuing to talk all the time. But yeah, and around Rapid Rugby, we saw some real benefits, even that short space, in terms of providing opportunities for our players, for our coaches, being part of a global competition in terms of cross-border competition. All those things were really positive from our point of view. Time will tell, obviously, what happens next. You just don't know, because we just don't know how long the borders will be closed. But from our point of view, we have every intention of continuing to participate in that level of rugby. Cool.
And there's a lot of question marks for next season, because obviously the Rapid Rugby happens in the same window as Super Rugby, and well, people are saying that we might not. People are already suggesting that the Olympics might be under threat, which is in sort of middle of next year, because of the lack of the vaccine. So yeah, a lot of questions still to be answered that we can't really say, I guess, at the moment.
No, and I think that just goes back to being really flexible and fluid and well positioned to deal with what that whatever eventuates. And and when you're struggling to survive, it's difficult to look that far forward. So I guess Bay of Plenty's in a position where, while it's incredibly tough at the moment, we've worked hard to get a really good foundation, so we can hopefully ride through this situation and be prepared for any of those situations as they throw them up next year.
Obviously, so you had those guys under a sort of professional regime. Are you still keeping them in a kind of or training at home, or how are they being handled now that they're all in lockdown?
Yep, no, good question. So yeah, so our coaches and our strength and conditioning team staying in regular contact with those players. Obviously, for the China Lions, there was a mix of provincial union players involved. So there was players from Southland, Waikato, North Harbour. So for us, we're still offering support for those guys, but recognise, they've got their own provincial union support staff as well. So we just, providing support if they require it, and if not, then there's no issues either. And then for our local guys, yeah, absolutely, programs in place, regular, communication from our coaches, checking on their well-being too. I think it's really important for our players to know that they are supported during this period, because it's really, for an athlete, it's incredibly, it's tough on anyone to be in isolation or to be in lockdown when you can't do the things that you're used to doing. But I think for an athlete, it's a really challenging scenario where you can't get out there and train, and you're used to, getting out there and competing, and to have that taken away is really a difficult situation. So more than anything, I think it's really important that our coaches and our staff are making sure the well-being of our players is at the forefront.
So have you been have they been zooming around, dropping off bits of exercise kit with different houses just before lockdown, or having challenges to see who can have the most bizarre weightlifting kit?
A bit of everything, really. So again, we've got some fantastic strength and conditioning coaches who, did a really good job of ensuring pre-lockdown, like you said, that the players had access to as much as they could. That then getting creative and innovative in terms of challenges and different ways of approaching the situation, and how you can make it fun and enjoyable in a pretty stressful situation. So yeah, getting very creative, and which is not a bad thing sometimes. Like it's made our people think outside the box and think of different ways to do things, and so hopefully, even though it's been an incredibly tough period, hopefully we take some really positive learnings out of this and gain some insights in terms of how we can use things moving forward.
Obviously, the club game would have been underway, well, the club season would have been underway by now, and that's getting delayed. And I guess I'll ask you, what's the plan? Is the plan to shift it into later in the season, or is the plan to have to miss a year for the clubs?
I think ultimately that'll be decided by our clubs. Like we need to, we want club rugby to operate this year. But this, again, it's going to need to be something that the clubs are in a position to play rugby. And there's a whole number of factors, a whole range of factors that go into that, in terms of, are our fields going to be available? Are our players in a position to play if we have to have a window that's slightly later? What impacts in terms of, if it's a rural club, there could be farming or different things that are going to impact on the availability of players. So, and then you got the summer sports coming into, the equation as well. So, ultimately, the conversations we had with our clubs to date is that they're really motivated about having an opportunity to get back out on the paddock, and we'd support them 100%. Again, when, we don't know, and how we do it, it may again need to be creative and modified to ensure that we're operating within the guidelines of return to play protocol. So it's a whole bunch of, as you can imagine, models, scenarios, start dates, finish dates, all sorts of stuff that is going on behind the scenes, that we just need to be ready and prepared to get back out on the field and make sure we've ticked all the boxes from a Ministry of Health point of view, to ensure that when we do, we're doing everything we can to ensure that we're following the right processes.
So obviously the Ministry of Health providing inputs, you're talking with New Zealand Rugby, you're talking with the clubs, you're also talking with, and I know there's a Sport Waikato, is there a Sport Bay of Plenty, or is it
yeah, Sport Bay of Plenty, yep. Yeah. So we have a regional sports trust, so yeah, good engagement there. So we have regular communication with all the sporting codes, all the regional sports. Again, just sharing information, talking through issues, trying to figure out how we can cooperate to make sure that we're supporting the whole sporting community versus just looking at our own situation. So again, I think that's been a positive out of a tough situation, is the ongoing engagement across sport, and ensuring that we are working together for the best outcome for all of our participants, rather than just working in our own silo.
Right, and you say obviously strength and conditioning guys are doing stuff for the for people in your high performance program. Have they also done a running one for all the club players that they can dial into, or is it just, are you just focusing on the top crowd?
No, I definitely know our guys are looking at ways that they can support our clubs and provide detail to our community players. And also our coach education programs are still ongoing. You know, we're doing some great work in terms of forums, online forums. Same with our referees. So where possible, while it's not business as usual, it's definitely continuing to stay engaged and connected and preparing as much as we can for that situation when we can actually get back out on that field. So, as I say, a lot of good work being done by the staff in a pretty difficult time for them to figure out how do we stay, you know, in a business that's all about people and about engagement and connection. To be so disconnected from people is difficult, but I think they've been pretty innovative in the way they're trying to deal with it.
And what about on the one of the other things is that obviously the players and people have got time on their hands. So on the personal development side and the sort of the post rugby career, I know a few players have mentioned how they're trying to put a lot of extra time into there. So a busy time for your development officers.
Yeah. So our professional development manager, Ati, is a great man, and he's certainly, you know, he's working probably more than he's ever worked in terms of ensuring that our guys and girls are maximising the opportunity that they have here in terms of the downtime from being out on the field. Like everyone's got different aspirations, so it's working with each individual and figuring out where they're at with their life, what's their plan, what do they need to do, and what can they achieve over the period of time where they've got this downtime, I guess, in terms of their rugby career. So yeah, I'm sure he's doing fantastic work with our players in that space as well.
So what's been the favourite challenge you've seen so far? I've seen the various cooking ones from different players and stuff that you've been putting out as Facebook stories. What's been your favourite challenge you've seen?
Well, I did see a challenge by our female high performance group where were knocking bottles over with passes with the rugby ball, etc. Some of them I suspect were about take number 437 before they actually knocked the bottle over. But I found that really cool because it was an engaging video across a whole range of backgrounds, you know, right throughout the bay, you know. So there was all sorts of different destinations in the Eastern Bay, Central Bay and Western Bay where people are living in their own little bubble. But for all of our female athletes to be able to connect like that, I found that one pretty entertaining, and actually probably shoot outside and give it a go myself and see if I can knock the bottle over.
So okay, you're just going to keep not going to look at some.
I won't be taking any video of it though.
You're going to take video. Oh, what? That's not.
It's certainly not for public display.
So, have you seen some of the Carlos Spencer's ones he's been doing?
Yeah, and I think Miguel's probably picked up on some of that and utilised that. But it was so I thought it was just real, it was natural, and showed them in their own bubble. But a great way to show that they're still connected and still engaged with the group.
Cool.
Yeah, but I don't possess anywhere near those level of skills. I was a loose forward, Paul, so I wasn't allowed to kick, pass, or do anything really.
You're a basketball player. You can shoot, definitely. This is
didn't really come in handy on the rugby field.
We can get you a rugby ball, and you can be shooting hoops out the back with your daughters.
I could try that. Thanks for that idea, Paul.
Oh dear me. And so also, I can see you're doing it from home, not from the office as well. How's the family bubble been? Okay, you found it kind of interesting. People giving you time to work from home, or is it? Have you got any pet dogs that have dived into Zoom calls and things like that, or how's
I've been pretty lucky. No dogs in the house, which is good, and the kids have adjusted really well. To be honest, you know, sometimes you got to sort of sneak over the shoulder and, you know, quieten down a little bit while we're on Zoom calls, but. We sort of got into a routine. I'm sure most environments are the same. That, you know, they get into routines, and once they understand it, then they just get on with it. So, you know, generally we've coped pretty well, but we're certainly looking forward to getting through level 4 and level 3 and getting a bit more normality back to life. They're missing their sport. If anything, all the kids are really, really missing their sport. Not missing school as much, But yeah, so I think, you know, getting back to that point where they can, you know, re-engage with their friends, you know, and get back into sport will be a pretty important moment for them.
Obviously, basketball being a team sport won't be allowed under level 3, but obviously you guys are in Tauranga, which obviously is surfing or near the sea, so surfing territory. So will you be level 3 allows surfing? So will you be jumping on a board, or is that not your
Well, I have tried to teach myself to surf, and I can't say I'm great at that, Paul. Again, the kids are much better than I am already. So, I know a number of our players that were pretty excited when they heard that surfing was allowed under level 3. So I'm sure we'll see plenty of our boys out there having a surf, and I think again, it's great that we can get a slice of normality back. But hopefully we all continue to follow the rules so we don't ever have to go back to level 4 again.
So, challenge suggestion is 2 people, obviously from the same bubble, coming on surfboards, passing rugby ball backwards and forwards. That's my suggested challenge.
It's a bit hard to do that over in Hamilton, isn't it? But maybe you could do it out
here. I can't. Yes,
Raglan or something like that. Could be a Raglan club challenge.
But out near Tauranga, you guys can. Thank you very much. It has been an absolute joy talking to you and hearing the challenges that have been going on down in Bay of Plenty. Clearly, it looks like your club rugby. You're expecting obviously Mitre 10 to hopefully happen this year as well. Actually, I guess you like actually I need to just like Tasman. You're one of the 2 provinces that have 2 locations in Tauranga and Rotorua. How do you balance that? By having two venues?
Yeah, again, it's a good question, and it's always been a bit of a challenge in terms of rugby in the Bay's changed over the 100 odd years we've been around. So initially, the Eastern Bay of Plenty, Whakatane was the home of rugby in the Bay of Plenty, and then it sort of moved to Rotorua, and Rotorua was a really strong hold of rugby, and then in our later years, obviously with the growth of Tauranga as a city. It's become more of a destination here as well. So it is a challenge when we've got 3 distinct areas that make up the Bay of Plenty. But like you say, we also have two homes where we play Mitre 10 Cup games. I guess to answer your question, our philosophy is wherever possible we look at all of our activity and ensure that we're trying to connect and engage with our rugby community right throughout the Bay. So we don't look in isolation at Mitre 10 Cup and say, well, we're going to play 2 games here, 3 games there, or whatever the scenario may be. We look at the Volcanics, we look at the Steamers. We've had a fantastic under-19 program, and all of our other rep programs. But then also going through to our community rugby, we look at some fantastic profile events that we have there, where we've have fantastic secondary schools finals days. So we look at all of our content, I guess, and try and figure out a model where we can share that around the region so all of our rugby participants get an opportunity to be a part of it. And again, there's no perfect model because obviously down in Whakatane we don't have a venue that can host Mitre 10 Cup games as it stands under the criteria. So we have to get pretty creative, but we do our best to make sure we can get rugby out to the regions and out to everyone where possible. And that was one of the advantages of having Rapid Rugby and the potential to play a couple of games in Bay of Plenty. We're going to play a couple more games in Rotorua, so we ensured that there was more rugby content being delivered there as well. So while it's a bit of a challenge logistically, we actually see it as a bit of an advantage. In terms of having 5 home games in one venue. Sometimes it overpopulates, the marketplace, and especially when there's a range of other events, not just rugby, happening in one destination. So having the ability to have 2 different venues, while on some occasions it's logistically challenging, we think it's actually an advantage for us.
Now, obviously, the move up to the Premiership, there was a suggestion you'd be getting more night games without having floodlights in Tauranga. Was that going to be an issue, or was Sky nice with your scheduling to give you enough day games?
Oh, we've got a good balance actually, So we've been on record and preferred day games because it suits the market that we're looking. We love the family market. We love the 2:35 games. Sun on your back, whether it's Rotorua or Tauranga. We really enjoy those afternoon games, and we think it fits our community. So we prefer as many afternoon games as possible. But at the end of the day, we know there's 14 teams in the competition, and we all have expectations around when they want to play as well, and it's no easy task coming up with a perfect model, and so we're really comfortable that we get listened to, and New Zealand do their best, and Sky do their best to accommodate all the requests, and ultimately we just want to win games.
Is there any thoughts of getting a bigger stadium built in Tauranga? Are the council looking at that, or are you working with them to try and increase or make a more permanent venue?
Yeah, look, there's some really good conversations happening between some of the key players in Tauranga and in the wider Western Bay around infrastructure. And so an outdoor venue is something that we feel like we are lacking in a city the size of Tauranga. But there's a number of other infrastructure projects that would need to go alongside any investment in a venue. And I think, if you're looking at something like a outdoor events venue that can cater for sporting events, but also music concerts, cultural events, you need to make sure that it's not trying to go down the old model of ratepayer pays. I think those days are well and truly gone, and we recognise that. So you have to be pretty innovative in your model of how you can work with your local authority and your ratepayers to come up with a model that works for the community, because there's so many other projects that are just as important, if not more important, for our city. So we recognise that as well. But we're pretty confident that we're getting a good voice, we're getting a good hearing. We've got a wide range of stakeholders who are really motivated about the potential to have the right venue to suit what Tauranga needs. So hopefully, hopefully we can get that over the line at some point and provide a good asset for this community.
And the other thing that's based down in your region is the New Zealand Sevens program as well. We've seen Joe come over and play at the Mitre 10 Cup level. How much crossover is there between you guys and the Sevens program?
Yeah, it's been great actually. Not just with the Sevens program, but with the University of Waikato and the High Performance Training Centre as well. So some fantastic ability to collaborate with them as well around research projects and using our players, I guess, as guinea pigs for their projects, but us getting the benefits out of that data as well. And yeah, a really good relationship with New Zealand Sevens, especially around the staff. It's great to be able to bounce ideas, even though it's Sevens, 15s. It's still great to be able to have coaches who can talk to coaches from a different environment, share ideas, just bat things around. Same with our strength and conditioning resource. The New Zealand Sevens program obviously got some of the best coaches and support staff in the world. So to be able to have those in the same building as us and just have a coffee or have a chat around different things has been hugely valuable, I believe. And then, if we get the opportunity to have players want to play for our Bay of Plenty team, it's becoming more and more difficult, obviously, in terms of players who are playing Sevens and 15s, given the growth of the Sevens program. But a guy like Joe, who's from Makatu, he's a local boy. He just loves playing the Mitre 10 Cup for Bay of Plenty, and I know every opportunity he gets, he's always in my ear about asking for that contract. So. When that's appropriate and we can get some of our local boys who are in that environment and the Sevens playing Mitre 10 Cup, I think it's great.
Cool. Great. Yep. Thank you very much. Is there anything I've missed or any other rugby kind of things going on in the Bay that I perhaps should know about, or the fan people should know about?
No. I think you've done pretty well there. You got sort of 50 minutes of content there. It's worth gold, isn't it? Got my rugby career in about 12 seconds.
Oh, yeah, we should have. Well, yes. Well, one of the things that we're thinking of doing on the program is to ask people what was their most memorable game that they played in, and then go back and sort of relive it with them. So, do you have a most memorable game we could go back and relive, you think?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I was that good to remember. I do remember in Hamilton. I'm sure you can sort of attest to this. Back in the day, St. John's College playing Church College. So the Catholics playing against the Mormons.
Right.
So I certainly remember some pretty good battles going out to Temple View out in Church College and as a small, I think we were about 350 boys at that time at St. John's. Pretty much just little fellas going up against some pretty big, strong boys. And I always felt like the Church College guys were about 23, 24 years old, kids on the sideline, so little 2-year-old running around and sort of scratching your head going, how does that work out? We can't do the math if you're only 18. But no, there's probably some of those, memories of that. And then I certainly remember playing first 15, had a Tricolor Trophy challenge versus Hamilton boys when I was at St. John's. Which is a pretty prestigious trophy for secondary schools, obviously, in the Waikato. So I remember going up against Hamilton boys and remember getting absolutely smashed. Tried to pull off a huge tackle and I just got absolutely set on my backside. So I still remember that to my day. But Yeah, so no real, glory highlights, but just plenty of fond memories of getting out there playing rugby and playing with your mates.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure. Everybody, don't forget to like the page or subscribe to the podcast, and for more of these long talks. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to go back and listen to the one with Cameron Bell from the Northland, and also, and I'm going on blank, with Tasman.
Tony Lewis.
Tony Lewis, thank you. Tony Lewis from Tasman as well. They were both very good listens as well.